Really?
So yeah, actually, it's kind of like
That's very patient
a
of
nightly. It is. I know. It's like she took out a dictionary and found every single word that I haven't yet learned.
People like that. Oh, I know that. That's
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Are we rolling?
So this is Brian and my first time actually meeting each other in person. It doesn't feel like that. It feels
No.
like it's been like we've known each other for a while because
Yeah.
we've done so many videos. Were you surprised by anything that happened today?
I thought it was interesting how if you're used to reading a lot of like a novel or something like that, that strangely, you know, a manga with lots of furigana can actually feel more difficult. Sounds like I'm making
Absolutely.
excuses
No,
for
I
myself.
no, but I agree. I agree because until last month, I was talking to you about this earlier. I'd never read manga before, really, ever. But I'd played games and read books and stuff. So, like, it took me about 5 or 6 books just to like get used to the format and get comfortable.
Yeah.
And I felt like a complete beginner again, reading an easy manga from the beginning, even though you think in your head, right, that it's easier.
like it'll
you
be
would
easier,
think,
yeah.
you would think, but
But like there's a certain moment when you're reading a story that your brain kind of like gets on the rails, you know? Like, and then it's like smooth sailing,
right. So have you ever read any manga before or just haven't read it in a long time?
Not really. A friend loaned me, Monster.
I think I've heard of that.
A guy kind of like gets involved with a doctor.
Okay.
Gets involved with like the dark side.
There's some interesting stuff out there with manga. It's pretty cool. What's really interesting is like a lot of people, to me at least, you think somebody likes manga or somebody likes reading books, but within each of those genres, they're not genres, books and manga. There's so many different types.
Yeah.
That actually, what I found was finding a type of manga or book that you actually like is super, it makes a huge difference.
Totally,
Like, reading through manga that I wasn't really interested in, like, I was like, I don't care. And I thought, maybe I don't like manga, but then I found one I actually was interested in. And it was totally different. I got sucked in. I was like, all day, every day, reading tons, so. Yeah.
Totally, you need the interest of the story to like pull you along,
Yes.
you know?
Yes.
And that's why I feel like reading is so good for people in a language study kind of thing, because it can help you to get over that hump.
Yes.
You know, it is always a little bit of work involved.
It is, for
sometimes
sure.
not a little bit, sometimes a lot, right?
For me, a lot, almost
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah, and so anything that can kind of help you to get over that hump, and because once you start, it's easier to continue. So if you're interested in that story, it's so useful that way.
Oh, super, massively useful. One thing I tend to be a bit of a completionist. I don't know about you, but I feel like if I start something, like reading a book, I've always sort of had the feeling like I needed to complete it for some reason. But recently, I've sort of drifted away from that a little bit and been more of like, if this book doesn't capture me in like the first 20, 30 pages, especially in Japanese, because it is work.
Yeah.
I'll generally, nowadays, the past couple months, put it away and pick out something different, because like you said, when it does suck you in, even though it is work,
Yeah.
it becomes less work. That story sort of pulls you along, at least in my sense.
Yeah, I mean, you only have so many hours in the day, and you know,
Unfortunately.
you got to like direct them strategically.
Right.
You know? So
Right.
yeah,
Yeah. Especially I feel like we do similar things. Probably our day-to-day is quite similar as far as our time a lot. So as much as I'd love to just read all day, every day, I know I can't do that. I don't know about you, but
yeah, I wish.
fortunately, a lot of your work probably is reading a lot of stuff, but not like books you'd necessarily be super.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of like looking through this, you know, the text and like annotating and stuff like that.
Right.
but
It's a little bit different.
Yeah.
I have a question. When you choose a book to read, do you tend to try and choose something that's like that will push you, or more so that is around an appropriate level in your case?
I do a little bit of both.
Okay.
I read a really hard book recently, and I was kind of tired, so I was like, I'm gonna go back to like this author that I've read so much of his stuff. I know how he writes, and so I can just sight read it out loud, easily.
Right.
But I kind of felt guilty after I read that book. I was like, I got to get back to pushing myself. So right now I'm reading an author named Ota Ai.
Okay.
And she, man, it's like she took out a dictionary and found every single word that I haven't yet
I know
learned.
people like that. Oh, I know that.
Yeah.
That's how I felt. I played a game called Higurashi no Naku Koro. It's a very famous visual novel. That's how I felt the whole time.
Really?
Leading into that, I was like, I'm doing good, I'm doing good. And then I hit that, and every kanji was like, did you pick the hardest possible kanji for this word and just choose that one? I feel like some people do that.
But you know what people should know is that those kind of points, they kind of get clumped together. Like I pushed through, and I've kind of gotten used to her style now. And now I'm at like page 350 out of this 500-page first volume of this story. But I'm now on the train over here. I was reading it, and I'm like, I'm doing pretty good here, you know. You kind of get on the rails, you know.
Yes.
But then you'll hit like 3 pages that like are just chock full of like, in this case it was like medical terminology and the names of bacteria and anaerobic respiration and stuff, and I'm just like, it took me so long to get through those 3 pages.
Do you tend to go back and reread them after you've gone through one time?
I do, yes. Yeah, especially for stuff like that. Yeah. Well, you know, you spend so much time looking it up.
Yeah.
But when you go through again the second time and you're like, haha, you know,
it's super fun.
It's like the road is like littered with like the words that you now know, at least for the moment. But the more times, you know, you go through it, the greater the chances that you're gonna, it'll stick onto you. You know?
I've seen that, A lot of times, I'll be honest, I don't. But when I do, it always sticks better. And it always is so much fun when I go through and I'm like, oh, I know this word now. I remember this one because I looked it up, just like you said, Totally feel that. Yeah,
I actually, my secret is that I read out loud to my wife.
Oh, really?
So actually it's kind of like
very patient
a nightly, it is, I know. I actually thank her for her patience frequently. But
that's awesome.
But yeah, with this book, I have to do yoshu, like study ahead, because when I was trying to sight read it to her, she was like, "It's too slow." So
I feel like Yuki would lose her mind if I did that.
But if I'll study on my own, and then I get like 10 or 20 pages, and then I can read that at a normal pace, and it's also review for me, so it kind of like. It's just kind of a fun sort of wind down kind of activity for us, and it's also practice for me. So
that explains why your out loud reading was so smooth. Like I was like, oh my goodness, like you do it all the time, so that makes sense now. Okay, great.
Practice definitely helps with that.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah.
All right, so we don't have too much time left for today's, but is there anything you'd like to tell people who might be watching this about Satori Reader, or any advice you might have after watching a video like this? This might be separate from that video in some way. But,
well, I'd just like to tell everybody that reading is something that it's a challenge, and it takes time, but you can really slowly but surely get better at it, and you can feel your progress. Yes. Especially, when you're reading out loud, I really encourage people to do that, because it just puts the entire speech production machine, through its paces. You can't cheat,
Right.
If you're reading silently, you can kind of skip over words, and stuff. But, it's such a good exercise, and even though it might feel painfully slow sometimes, practice really, really does accumulate, and it's super satisfying when you're kind of like riding the bike and you're like, I'm doing it, I'm really doing it, and so it's worth it in so many ways. So, 皆さん頑張ってください。
頑張れ! All right. Well, thank you so much for having us here and for coming to do this, and we're excited to try it again one of these days.
Okay, yes.
Thank you so much. All right.
Round 2.
Thanks a lot, man.
Okay.
All right. See you next time, guys. Subscribe, hit the like button. It helps a lot. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
All right.
All right. Hey, that was pretty.
ありがとうございました。
Okay.